Hello. Awesome.
All
Right. Well, I
cool.
reckon we're 6:32. We've got a few people still coming in, which is fine, but you can take it away.
Flick it over. Hey guys,
Hi, everyone.
good to see so many of you on. It's really good. Like I said before, it's our first webinar of 2025. We've got heaps to cover, and looking forward to getting stuck into this and seeing where we go. Want it to be interactive, guys. So ask questions. You know, we're going to be answering all the questions at the end, but through the presentation, ask questions, comment. You know, let's make it as interactive as we can, and as fun as we can for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this webinar for a couple of months. We've been preparing it. We've put a lot of thought into the content that's gone into it based on questions that we always get asked, based on what's happening in the market at the moment. So if there's anything specific that you want to learn, drop it in the chat box. And we will do our best to answer it either during the presentation, or we can jump on at the end and answer those questions too. So ask questions, get involved, and thanks for joining us.
Cool, let's get stuck in, guys. All right, so welcome. For anyone who doesn't know, my name is Joel and this is Bianca. We're the co-founders of Echo Property, and we've been in the property industry since 2012. Bought my first investment property in 2012, and our journey really started to evolve in and around 2017, where we really got heavily involved in the education space around property and everything associated with property. From then, we've done our own renovations, conversions, developments, subdivisions, duplexes, and also rooming accommodation, which is what led us to creating Echo Property and having the ability to actually help other people build their portfolio and create a life of freedom for themselves, and also wealth. So that's how Echo Property evolved, and it's continually evolving, and we have a lot of fun doing what we're doing, and we're just so grateful that we are able to help other people join us on the journey and help you guys out at the same time. So today, the presentation, so just a bit of an overview of what we're going to be covering today. Now, it is pretty, I'd say, numbers heavy early on, and then we do want to cover things of what's happening in the market, trends, things like that, and then we're going to go later on into actual rooming houses and some things and some case studies that we've done for current clients and past clients. So stick around, guys. It'll get prettier as we go on. So first up, we're going to be covering the rental market and housing trends, followed by key insights into rooming houses, understanding market demand, local laws, licensing and lease agreements, perception of rooming houses and attracting quality tenants. That's a good one, and I'm stoked we're going to be able to talk about that today. Property management tips, Bianca will be talking about, case studies and testimonials, followed by a Q&A. So like I said, guys, drop all your comments and anything you've got into that chat box, and we'll answer them at the end. I also want to make a big disclaimer. This is not financial advice. We always recommend you get advice from your professionals, whether it's an accountant, solicitor, whoever it is. This is just general advice, so it is not specific financial advice. So let's dive straight into the rental market, guys. So what we're covering today is purely around Queensland and Queensland as a whole. It's where we are currently operating, and so we just really wanted to cover this market. But you know, you'll get the gist as we go along. So straight into it. So a high rent at the moment, right now, the rental market, we're in a high rental demand, shortage of supply of vacant properties, which equals a very tight rental market. Now, what do you think? Drop it in the chat, guys. What do you think happens when we have a very tight rental market? You can see on the screen here, we are sitting currently at 1% vacancy rate right across Queensland. So we're in a very tight rental market at the moment. Has anyone answered questions?
No, it hasn't come back yet. Rents go up.
Rents go up. Very good. So thanks, Benny. So exactly, it's a supply and demand thing, guys. So as we have a super tight rental market, supply is short, demand is obviously growing, and it unfortunately it causes people to actually have to bid for properties, and it's not a great thing, guys, for the housing market, because what we've experienced since COVID is this tight rental market that's got tighter and tighter, and it means it's becoming unaffordable for people and really putting pressure on people, and we're seeing more and more people on the streets because unfortunately they can't afford to rent somewhere. For the investor, it does mean that there's a huge opportunity there to actually build your portfolio, jump on the back of that and build your portfolio. And what we're going to talk about today is actually an opportunity to build your portfolio and do well for yourself, but also at the same time help other people and help those people that need it, who need more affordable accommodation. So I think Bianca might have had something you wanted to add to that.
No? I was just going to say, put yourself back on the screen. I was like, he's got this awesome touchpad going on over here. So
it's good. Yeah. You go this one.
There you go.
There we go. So at the moment, we're in a tight rental market, guys. It's 1%. So a healthy rental market is between 2.6 and 3.5%. A weak rental market is 3.6% and above. And a tight rental market is anything under 2.5%. And we're sitting at 1% across the state. So it's really tight at the moment, and it's been like this since realistically since about 2020. And we'll talk about why in the coming slides. So just the current vacancy rates and rental market across the state at the moment. So you can see Brisbane there is 1.1%, Gold Coast 1.2%, Sunshine Coast 0.8%, Southern Queensland 0.6%, North Queensland 0.9%, Central Queensland 0.5%, Queensland Central Coast 0.8%, and West Queensland 0.6%. So you can see, guys, we are hovering below, well, sitting at that 1% as an average. But what I thought was really interesting out of this is that a lot of those regional markets are sitting below the 1%. You've got your Brisbane, Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast, which are really the three most built up areas in Queensland, are the highest vacancy rates, and then the other guys are really low, which was really interesting. So moving on to Queensland building approvals. So you can see just on the right-hand side here, guys, we've got our total dwelling approvals in Queensland from November 2019 to November 2024. So this is the total amount of approvals for houses, units, townhouses, everything, all captured into one that we're seeing. This is obviously on a monthly scale. So you can see this big rise here through sort of 2020, 2021. Can anyone have a stab at what might have caused that? What the government did there to made that give us that big jump? Anyone answered? COVID. Yep. Stimulus. So yep. Brian, thanks, mate. So remember all the homeowner grants? I think it was, I can't remember how much it was. Was it 25 grand?
Yeah.
I think it was 25 grand for if it was your principal play. I can't remember the exact statistics, but there
was a lot of stimulus.
It was from a lot of stimulus to essentially go and build your own home. So everyone jumped on the back of that, and we saw building approvals rise dramatically. They since then fell, and they've been going on this little wave, and they were on the increase just recently, but they've now sort of leveled back out. From January to November 2024, we had 32,296 total dwelling approvals across Queensland. Our target, so the Christopher Foley government released a statement in November 2024, so it was only a few months ago now, stating that its ministerial housing task force will focus on ensuring the state is on track to deliver 1 million homes by 2024. So that's an average of 50,000 per year. So in order to reach that target, we need 50,000 dwelling approvals per year. Now, from January to November 2024, dwelling approvals are well short of this target, and it will be a challenge moving forward. There's only twice that we've had 50,000 dwelling approvals per year, and that was in the last 31 years. That was in 1994 and 2016. So if we ran January to November, that's 11 months. If we ran it through to December and did a whole year, it's about another 3,000. So we're looking at roughly 35,000 dwelling approvals for the year. So we're 15,000 short to get us to the that 50,000 per year target. So we're well and truly short in actually creating the amount of houses that we actually need. Pair that with population growth in Queensland. So net overseas migration is projected to make the biggest contribution to Queensland's population growth over the next 50 years. So if we look just over on the right-hand side here again, guys, projected population growth from Queensland from 2021 to 2071, net overseas migrants is 50%, so just over 2 million. Natural increase of about 1 million and net interstate migrants of about 1 million. So majority of the people moving to Queensland is actually coming from overseas, which is really interesting. So Queensland's population is projected to grow 1.7% or 93,953 people annually on average, reaching 6.15 million. It's probably easier for me to say. Yep. By 2031, that's what, only six years away. Yep. So that's nearly 94,000 people per year. The population in Queensland is going to grow, which is huge. So over the next 50 years, Queensland's population is projected to grow by 4 million to reach 9.26 million people. That's just in Queensland, guys. And by 2046, the Greater Brisbane area is expected to have the highest population growth, with an increase of 1.3 million to reach 3.86 million people, followed by the Gold Coast, 350,000 to reach 1 million. And then in third place, the Sunshine Coast, and an increase of 205,000 basically to reach 609,000 people. You look like you want to say something.
No, I'm just, there's a lot of numbers there. So, but the point is, these numbers are really, really important, because we're going to wrap it all up in the next slide.
We are, guys. We'll wrap it all up soon. But yeah, I just want to run through these just to give you guys a bit of context into what's actually happening in the market and what's causing the housing market to do what it is. So we'll keep moving. There we go. So moving on to Queensland infrastructure investment. So guys, this is solely just based in Queensland, and we've only left it to the billions. We haven't included any infrastructure that's in the millions. We've just kept it to the billions, just to give you a bit of an idea, and I'll quickly just run through it. $107 billion of capital works over 4 years, 72,000 jobs, 69% of jobs outside of Brisbane, which I thought was really interesting. $225 billion of investment over 13 years, $7.1 billion of investment towards the 2032 Commonwealth Olympic Games, and $26 billion in Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan. So Queensland Government 2025 state budget has allocated $107 billion for capital works over the next 4 years. That's only 4 years, guys. It's not much to support the state's growth through the Big Build initiative. In the same year, the government's $27.1 billion capital program is set to directly support around 72,000 jobs across Queensland, with 50,000 or 69% of the jobs to be located outside the Greater Brisbane region. So guys, with jobs, obviously employment, it brings people. With people these people need to stay somewhere. We need to create housing for them. So it's putting more and more pressure on housing. So over 13 years, more than 225 billion will be invested in infrastructure. Key transport projects include the 37.8 kilometre Sunshine Coast rail line, which we are going to need for the Olympics because we actually have some of the events up here, such as the marathon. I think the triathlon might be up here as well. So that needs to go in order for us to be able to actually move people around, get people up here from Brisbane. So they are going to be on a big push to get that done. The Coomera Connector Line, Stage 1, upgrades to the Bruce Highway, that's ongoing. Gold Coast Light Rail Stage 3, again, they need that for the Olympics, guys, to move people around. The Logan and Gold Coast Faster Rail upgrade. So a lot of these things you can see, guys, is really focused on actually moving people around because they are expecting so many more people here in terms of population growth, but also in terms of the 2032 Olympics. So the budget will also include 62 million over 4 years for preparations for the Brisbane Games and 14 million annually until 2032-33 for the venue and legacy planning. A 7.1 billion joint funding program with the federal government will support venue infrastructure. And then lastly, the Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan focuses on energy transformation, committing around 26 billion over 4 years. That's only 4 years, guys, for renewable energy, transmission, infrastructure and storage projects. So we're seeing a lot of solar farms, wind farms, that sort of thing going in, especially north of the Sunshine Coast. We're seeing quite a lot of that. And 26 billion is a lot of money that's going to be invested into that. And like I said before, these infrastructure projects, they bring jobs, and all these workers need somewhere to live, and they need somewhere to live for their families. So it's going to bring more and more people, and it's going to be putting more and more pressure on housing. So moving on to shifting household demographics. So in Australia, we're seeing a rise in single person accommodation, especially among older women over the age of 65. So 2.5 people per household. So while the number of households in Australia has increased, so essentially we've got more people living here, and so essentially more houses, the average household size has decreased to 2.5 people per household. One person households have also increased to 26%. So that means that a quarter of the population at the moment is single people looking for accommodation. So single people households with women outnumbering men 55% to 45%. So it's relatively close, but there is more single women looking for housing as opposed to men. And then lastly there, the women 65 plus living alone, half the women living alone are 65 or older compared to 1/3 of men in that age group. So just while I'm on that, we are definitely seeing this with what we do with our rooming houses. I would say 80% of the people that take up the studios in our rooming houses are working professionals, and easily the other 20% would be the older demographic who have gone through some form of major lifestyle change. They might have gone through a divorce or a separation, or something has happened in their life and they're now seeking accommodation for themselves.
Yeah.
Looks like you want to say something.
Oh, no, I'm just agreeing. Yeah, we're definitely seeing, as Joel said, like largest amount is working professionals looking for accommodation, and that's who our target market is. But absolutely increasing market for mature age tenants, and they've gone through a life-changing event and they don't need a 3-bedroom house, a 4-bedroom house anymore. They're looking for something more affordable, and they're showing up and more at each and every open home.
Yeah, without going off track too much, but one really sits with me when we were doing an open home at one of our clients' projects, and we were only filling one studio. We had one turnover. We were filling one studio, and there was about 15 people at the open home, and one of them was an older gentleman. He would have been in his 70s. And Bianca was inside just showing people around. I was outside just meeting people, collecting all their information, having a chat to them. I was chatting to this old gentleman, and his wife had just recently passed away, and he was living in a house just down around the corner, and he was paying like $550 a week rent, plus all his outgoings. And he just said, I can't afford that anymore, and I don't need all that space, and I really need to downsize. We were renting this studio for $330 per week, and it included everything, all bills, fully furnished, and it was perfect. And he needed about 6 months to get all his stuff in order, all his affairs and everything.
He was like, I'm not quite ready, but he actually sent a follow-up email afterwards just to say he was so impressed with the quality, the size, the concept, and he said, even though I'm not quite ready right now, in 6 months when I am, this will be perfect for what I need. So it was just a really beautiful, tenant testimonial for somebody that's going through that life-changing event that, hey, I need something just like this, and, really impressed.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So, guys, with everything that we've just spoken about, this is an absolute golden opportunity for investors. And so we'll just run through just a bit of a recap of what we've just spoken about. So the projected population of Queensland, the projected Queensland population growth is an average of 93,953 people annually. So that's per year. There's a shortage of dwelling supply of around 15,000 dwellings per year. And the average household size has decreased to 2.5 people, and the single person household is on the increase. So while all these other people are building these family homes, the numbers are showing something different around people who actually are looking for accommodation. So we've just gone through that, and you can see there that there is this huge opportunity there for these rooming houses to actually do well for you as the investor, but also provide more affordable accommodation for people that need it. And when we say affordable, we don't mean low socio. We don't actually target low socio at all. They don't go for the studios that are created in rooming houses. They can't afford them. We're talking about working professionals and people who actually have money, they have jobs, and they actually don't spend much time at home because they're out working. So there's a huge opportunity at the moment. There's been an opportunity there for years. We started doing this before 2020. There was a huge opportunity for it then. Everything happened in 2019 and 2020, and that opportunity has absolutely exploded. And we cannot create enough housing for people at the moment. And it's about creating the right style of housing. And we're going to go through that shortly in the next slides. So stay with us. But there is a huge opportunity there for you right now to actually do really well for yourself. Anything you want to add?
No. Beautiful.
Rightio. So we're going to move on to rooming houses now, guys, and what they actually are. And we're going to stamp out the perception of what people think, or what some people think a rooming house is, and we're going to show you, some really, really good attributes around them, and why they are such a good investment. So I want to just get through the real boring stuff first, and that is the actual definition of what a rooming house is. And this is straight out of planning, Queensland planning. So we'll go straight into it. So it is the use of premise for a residential accommodation if each resident has the right to occupy one or more rooms on the premises, does not have a right to occupy the whole of the premises, does not occupy a self-contained unit as defined under the Residential Tenancies and Rooming Accommodation Act, Schedule 2, shares other rooms, facilities, furniture or equipment outside of the resident's room with one or more other residents, whether or not the rooms, facilities, furniture or equipment are on the same or different premises, or a manager's residence, an office, or providing food or other services to residents if the use is auxiliary to the use in A.
What a mouthful.
Oh, that's exciting stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, riveting.
Riveting, yeah.
Riveting.
Hold on to your seats, guys, I'll tell you. So essentially that's what a rooming house is, but in a nutshell, guys, it is, you would have seen the slide that we just started with. It looked like a normal house from the street. That particular one had a double garage, and I've got some more photos of that coming up. It had a double garage, it had a really nice facade, and it looks like a standard house from the street. Inside, it's actually configured as 5 one-bedroom apartments. We have some communal facilities in there, mainly a communal kitchen and a communal laundry. And then inside that, we have 5 studios that each consist of their own bedroom, their own living room, their own kitchenette, their own bathroom, and their own outdoor courtyard. So it gives people the opportunity to socialise if they want in the communal areas, or if they want to stick to themselves, they can just stick to their own studio. And it's really like, for them, it's like living in just a 1-bedroom apartment. So that is essentially what a rooming house is. And I'll go into it a bit more as the slides go on. So where might we find these? So generally, guys,
Just pop that back on so you can see.
We'll find these in your standard suburban areas. So without getting too technical with planning, we can do this in low density residential zoning throughout Queensland. Also, if we do any sort of council application that's not accepted development, we can do it in other zones. However, we wouldn't normally do that because we try and avoid council wherever possible. But yeah, you'll see it in normal suburban areas, and you might live next door to one and you don't even know it. But yeah, we generally prefer infill sites, guys. Now, the difference between an infill site, so there's 2 things. You've got an infill and you've got greenfield. Greenfield is those big estates, new estates that you'll see where you'll see multiple different houses going up and someone's chopped the land up into 50 lots or 100 lots. And then infill sites is where someone they live in an existing area where there's infrastructure and everything already there, and they have an existing house. They might knock it down and do a little 1 into 2, or they might be able to retain the house and chop a couple of blocks off. So that's an infill subdivision. Now, so our preference is for infill sites where it's close to amenities, it's close to transport, it's close to employment, that sort of thing. People can walk to shops, they can walk to their place of work if they need to. We find that is where they work really well. We sometimes do it in larger estates if the estates are close to, sometimes we might have like a 20-lot infill subdivision where there's still a large parcel of land within that suburban area and someone's just chopped that up. That's totally fine. We just steer clear of the larger greenfield estates where there's no infrastructure, there's no amenities, and you're essentially living in a paddock. We prefer the more infill sites. I've spoken about the amenities and employment hubs and transport. And so like sometimes people living in these style of accommodation don't even have a car. A lot of them have bikes and things like that. So if it can be close to transport, it's always our preference. Moving on, our target market for these. So like I said before, guys, the biggest demographic that takes up this style of accommodation is working professionals. And that ranges from about 25 years of age through to about 45 to 50. And when I say working professionals, that is any profession. And that goes from doctors, tradesmen, supermarket attendants, like anyone you can think of that has a job is what we're talking about. And, you might have, they all work on different timelines. Like some, tradies are obviously up early, they're home early, home earlier in the day. Then you've got shift workers that might be in the hospitality industry, that sort of stuff. So people are coming and going. Sometimes you'll see that people only cross paths with their other people living in the house very rarely, like once every couple of months. So that's really interesting.
Someone's just mentioned that the slides are a little bit blurry. Joel's summarising everything. So if any of these slides, if there's lots of writing and it's a bit hard to read, Joel's summarising everything. So anything you want clarity on, let us know. But thank you for that feedback. I'm not sure. I don't think it's an internet issue. But yeah, sounds good, visuals good. I think it just might be the slides.
Cool.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. We'll keep moving. Appreciate the feedback. So It's ideal for singles and couples. This isn't a accommodation for family, guys. It's singles and couples, and depending on the layout and the design that we do will depend on whether singles or couples actually move in, and we'll talk about that as we move on. And like I said, they're generally occupied by professionals in any profession, about 80%, I would say, and then 20% is that older demographic that, as I mentioned earlier, have gone through a major change in their life from, I mentioned a few things before, but that's generally, I'd say, the main people that we see moving into this style of accommodation. Moving on, so this is a floor plan of one of the ones that's we've finished, and we probably finished this one about 6 months ago.
Yeah, coming up 6 months, and again, it might be a bit hard to see. There's a lot of details on this specific example, but we're going to take you through. Bear with us. Joel's it's just to give you a bit of a visual. We've got lots of different designs. All sites are different. But it's just to give you a visual of the concept. Yeah,
a bit of a visual, guys. I'll just take you through it. So this one, as you can see, actually has a double garage. We don't do them in all our designs. This one actually had a covenant, and so it required a double garage. I was a bit hesitant, I'll be honest. This was the first one that we actually done, incorporated double garage. And once it was finished, the rooms that we obviously allocated to the garage to two of the rooms, and we added $10 a week extra for the garage. The two rooms that had the garage were the first two to go straight away, and the other rooms that went also requested the garage. There's obviously only two spots there, so we can only allocate to two. We do have, in this particular design, two other car spaces just here at the front. So this one had 4 car spaces in total. So we come in the front door. This is our communal kitchen. You can see here, just running along here. This is our communal laundry. It might be a bit blurry, but see how you go, guys. We have 2 washing machines in this design. Pretty much once we do 5 rooms, guys, we do 2 washing machines. You come down the hallway, turn left, and this is room number 1. You can see we've got a large bathroom here. This is actually our disability bathroom. We have our bedroom here, our living room here, kitchenette, and our private courtyard out here. Come down here, we've got living 2 with our kitchenette, bedroom just here, nice big robe, our bathroom in here. 3, very similar layout, guys. Living, bedroom, courtyard out here, kitchenette just along here, and bathroom just in here. And then these 2 are pretty much a mirror image. Walk in, we've got a little pantry just here, bathroom on the right, kitchenette on the left, through the living and into your bedroom. And this is just a mirror image. So just to give you a bit of an idea, guys, of the layout. We also have, just to give you an idea, all these internal walls between the hallways and each room. We have sound insulation in all these walls to really minimise noise transfer between the rooms. Wherever we can, just to minimise that noise transfer and retain tenants long term. It's a small cost just to do that, I think. So we do it wherever possible. Do you want to add?
Nope.
No, you're all good?
Yeah.
We'll continue to move on. So rooming house laws and licensing requirements. So this is a big one, guys. You can't actually build a rooming house anywhere you want. There are certain requirements that you need to adhere to, certain zones, overlays, and you may have to register with residential services. So I'll just go through a couple of things now, just to give you a brief overview. But I just want to reiterate that it can't be done anywhere, and there's a lot of requirements that you do need to adhere to when building them. So first one is, depending on the design, we may need disability access. Any new builds that we do, we put disability access in. It's just a lot easier to do from the start. It's not that much more expensive for the build costs, and it's actually a good thing. We're finding that the disability compliant room is actually really good for the older generation. They have obviously they might not be in a wheelchair, but they might be a bit unsteady on their feet. It's got wider doorways. They've got all the grab handles, and we're finding that a lot of the older people that are taking up the rooms actually like that disability room. So it's some people sort of have a perception like, oh, I wouldn't want to live there, but some people actually really like it.
Some people like it just because the bathroom's bigger too.
It's a lot, yeah, it is a lot bigger.
I've definitely met some ladies that are like, I love this, the bathroom's huge. So, you can't always assume that, what you wouldn't like for yourself wouldn't be more suitable for someone else. But it's quite interesting. Disability room often goes, and it's, not always to someone in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Quite often it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a Class 1B building. So your standard family home is a Class 1A. This is a Class 1B building. And we also need our fire and safety compliance. So there's a few different things that a Class 1B requires from a fire and safety perspective. And so in order to get that compliance, you do need to meet those points. So in terms of licensing requirements, so unlike other states, you don't need a rooming accommodation operator's license. However, depending on the design, you may need to register with residential services. So that's a bit of a tricky one, and it's we help our clients navigate through that. But in some instances, you would need to register. So lease agreements and tenant management. B, I might get you to talk about.
I can start running through this. I might have a look at those little slides. Got the slides there. So in Queensland, when we are doing this under accepted development, basically we've got a maximum of 5 occupants in the household. So as you can see, if you just pop back on the slides, so it's a maximum of 5 unrelated parties, which means it's either 5 single people. So in that instance, it would be essentially 5 studio apartments similar to the design that we showed you earlier. You can have 3 singles and 1 couple because that still makes 5 people, or you could have 2 couples and 1 single. So as you can kind of see, most investors want to go to the maximum of 5 because that's where the highest return on investment is, but it just means that you can't have any couples in those rooms, only single people. However, there is a huge couple market. So, sometimes designing a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom rooming house or a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom rooming house can be a really good thing because then you can accommodate couples as well. As not a lot of people are doing that, and a couple will pay typically a little bit more rent than a single. You can also design them with extra bedrooms too. Yeah,
you'll find, guys, the couple rooms will get snapped up so fast. They'll be in huge demand because a lot of people that are doing this are just doing the single room market. So if you can provide couples, it's
a balance.
It is a balance, yeah. And just on the maximum 5 people, I just wanted to touch on that as well. I didn't really talk about it before, guys. We use a state exemption in terms of a planning policy. We use a state exemption that allows us to do this. It means that we don't have to go through a full council application. We can go direct to the certifier and bypass all the hold-ups with council and go straight into a building approval, providing we tick all the boxes that we need to tick. Go straight into a building approval, get the BA, and we can start construction. So it is a lot faster process, and we're able to provide a lot more housing a lot faster by actually utilising this exemption.
Yeah, and there was a question earlier from Mark said which councils have good rooming policy. So that's what Joel's talking to right now. There is a state-based policy that allows you to do this across the state now. However, different councils have different opinions and infrastructure charges. So, you can do this Queensland-wide. However, some councils are more favourable than others. Some have excessive infrastructure charges.
Some are crazy.
Others have, small but palatable infrastructure charges, and some have none at all. So they're the type of things that when we're helping an investor decide what area is going to be right for them, considering all other things, taking into consideration, let's steer clear of councils where you're going to get stung $20,000 and just exorbitant amounts.
Yeah, guys, just for anyone that doesn't know, an infrastructure charge is something levied by council for a developer when they are essentially creating either a block of land or creating some sort of housing via a material change of use. So it's essentially a gift to council.
A donation.
It's a donation.
Because
there's going to be more people on the road. There's going to be more wheelie bins to pick up and all that sort of stuff. So they charge an infrastructure charge to cover that. And as Bianca said, some councils are favourable and it's 0, and others can be up to 20,000. So.
Yeah, we're getting lots of questions through at the moment. But what I think we might do, everyone, is we'll keep going and then we'll come back to everyone's questions at the end and answer them all. But these are really good, so keep them coming because we will come back and answer them all. Just back on to lease agreements and tenant management. So obviously maximum 5 unrelated parties. Each tenant is on an individual lease. So this is not a co-tenancy where, they're essentially roommates. Everyone can act independently. So if one person moves in or out, it doesn't affect the rest of the household.
Just like a block of units, guys.
Exactly.
Imagine a small block of 5 units or something. Everyone's on their own lease. This is very similar to that.
Yep. Absolutely. And in conjunction with that, we also have each tenant sign a set of house rules. And that's just things to be courteous of. Obviously, it is a shared space. There are common areas such as the entrance. As you saw in that design, it's basically an entrance, a common kitchen, a laundry, and the hallway to access their room. Like that is literally all they're sharing. But those house rules just add in things like being courteous of your housemates. They're not roommates, housemates, and essentially no noise after 8:30 p.m, no smoking inside, just all of those normal courteous things in a small space that you want people to agree to, and then that is in conjunction with their lease. So that just makes sure the household is harmonious and there's not things going on, and that comes down to good tenant management and good tenant selection, which we'll talk about later. The other thing is as well quarterly routine inspections. So as with any standard rental, the property manager will be doing quarterly routine inspections on each of the rooms just to make sure everything's... so it's basically run like a standard rental, a smaller unit block, really.
Yeah, it's a small unit block, yeah.
Cool. We'll just go to the next one. So... I love this one. So coming into rooming house, common misconceptions. So usually when people hear the word rooming house, they sometimes jump to, oh, that's a boarding house. It's old school. And this is generally what they think. So like slumlord, single bed, students, they think pop a desk. Pop a desk and a single bed in there and, sharing bathrooms, sharing kitchens and things like that. Is there anybody here tonight that kind of, when they hear rooming house or when they first heard rooming house, that's what they thought?
Don't be shy. Be honest.
Everyone's gone quiet. Everyone's gone quiet. But, 100%. Yes, 100%. It took my dad a while to come around because when he was 18, he moved to Brisbane to play football and he lived in a 10-bed rooming house. And when we started doing this, he was like, nah, he could not get on board because of his perception of the old school way of doing it. And really, we're going to jump forward and start to show you some pictures of what they're like. People also think low socio, unemployed,
bikies.
Students, bikies. So, it hasn't had the best reputation, but we are changing that. And as you saw earlier when Joel went through the stats and the information, it's, single person households are on the rise, and these single person households are not low socio. They are working professionals, they are mature age tenants, and they're, the demographic is so broad, so we can't pigeonhole anyone. What have we got here? Once upon a time. Yes, I think I lived in many before they were called this. Mate signs up on the lease, all the boys rent a room. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. So this is what we're not on the slides. No.
Here we go.
Did everyone see how ugly they were? Yeah.
Yeah, it was on earlier.
Okay, good. This is what we're referring to. So this is what our rooming houses look like. So we've designed and developed these as much as we can while still meeting the requirements that it's like a 1-bedroom apartment. So there's still rules and regulations that we need to adhere to, but for the most part, each tenant has their own private bedroom, bathroom, living area, meal prep area, outdoor patio, and also their own private clothesline. The only shared common aspect, which I mentioned before, is the entrance. the communal kitchen, the laundry, and the hallway to access their room. So other than that, they're self-sufficient.
And guys, you'd be surprised at how little use that common kitchen actually has. So the only thing it's got in there is an oven and some hot plates that the other kitchenettes don't have. But when you're a single person, you're really not sitting there cooking a roast or anything like that. So that common kitchen really very, very rarely gets used, if at all.
Yeah, so this picture here, this is the little kitchenette that it's pretty standard in our designs. As you can see, they've got a little fridge, microwave, little food prep area. There's no hardwired cooking facilities. That's part of the requirements. You can't have that, but there's nothing stopping them from having plug-in facilities. Some people have their little barbecue outside.
Air fryers,
Yep.
slow cookers, there's Uber Eats. Like the way that people are actually eating and living these days is
Very
drastically changed from what it used to be, 20 years ago. So this is more than enough to cater for what people actually need.
Yeah, absolutely. So this one here is just another angle of the kitchenette into the living dining. This is their access to outside. This one down here, that's actually the same room just from a different angle, and you can see the bedroom off to the right. So there's a door there and a bathroom in this middle one, and this final picture, that's another room. This is actually a disability room. You can see this has got a wider doorway. So, so if someone was in a wheelchair, they can actually get through as part of the requirements. So as you can see, this is how they come, and this is why they're attracting such a high quality tenant, which we'll move into next. Perfect. So a lot of the main question that we get asked when people are new to this, or even if they've been around it for a while, they're like, what type of tenants do you get? We've been through that. But how specifically we've been focusing on attracting high quality tenants is it starts well before you actually select the tenant. So we want to focus on the quality of design, finishes, purchasing in areas where people actually want to live to ensure that there's constant demand. So obviously you can do something and do the bare minimum, or you can actually put a little bit of thought into the design. So Joel and I, something that Joel, you should probably talk about design.
I'll talk about it. So like one of the things that we really focus on, guys, is car parking. Now you're only required down in Brisbane, you're only required to include 2 car spaces. Now with 5 people living in that house, look, some may not have a car, but there's a potential there that you can have 5 cars just for that one house. And if you're able to create more car parking, I think do it wherever you can. A little bit extra concrete is only a little bit extra expense, but people want to have their cars off the street. They don't want their cars parked on the street, getting vandalised or stolen. Like I said, with that other design that we talked about before, with the double garage, those 2 car spaces were the first to go, and then everyone else requested them as well. We had 2 other car spaces in that one, so we had 4 in total, which is good. But wherever we can, we'll provide 5. It's a small cost to actually give them the comfort that their car is off the street. The other things that we're doing is just a standard is stone bench tops throughout. You would have seen in those pictures. Just here, guys, this is all stone. All these benches, stone. So we do that wherever throughout all our builds. Just sound insulation between the walls, really minimising noise transfer. All our digital door locks. Like there's a bunch of stuff that just makes it more comfortable and easier for people when they're residing there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big focus on making sure that each tenant can get outside. Some rooming houses are designed and they actually don't have their own outdoor area. So there's things like this that we really focus on early on, that when it comes time to tenant the property, why it's standing out to people, because there are other options. They're either like older units, older townhouses, share houses, and then you bring to market something that kind of fits in the middle of, it's not a share house, but it's not a 1-bedroom apartment standalone. But the quality and the finishes is so attractive to them and it's more affordable. That's what makes it stand out. So that's that's one part of how we attract a higher quality tenant. Affordability, Joel touched on it earlier. Affordable housing doesn't mean low socio. It's affordable for that specific area. So here on the Sunshine Coast, as an example, we've got rooms that range from, I think the most cost-effective rooms is 320.
320, yep.
320. Up to 460. So, the Sunshine Coast is not a huge place, but there's lots of different suburbs in that area. And in one area, one design, one room, 320 is affordable for that area. And in another, 460 is per week. And that includes obviously their rent, water, electricity, Wi-Fi, and comes fully furnished. So for people, affordability is a big part of attracting high quality tenants too.
And that's increasing all the time with the cost of living. People are chasing more affordable accommodation so that they can have money set aside to actually live their life. So we're seeing it more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. And the final one that I've got here is easy maintenance. So rooming houses are often better presented than standard rental properties. If you rent a standard 4x2 house to a tenant, there's nothing in their lease that says they need to, well, they do need to maintain the lawns and things like that. But, if it gets overgrown and they get busy and whatnot, it's not, it can be easy to let go. With the rooming houses, lawn maintenance is done routinely, and there's also a common area clean that happens once a month as well. So from the outside, not only do they look like a standard home and like their house next door, they're also better presented. So when people come to live there, they go, wow, this is taken care of really well. It's presented well. So that also attracts a high quality tenant. Obviously, if something's neglected, high quality tenants are probably not going to want to stay there. Property management tips. A lot of this we've probably touched on, but I'll just quickly go through it again. So this is, I would say, lots of questions that we get. A lot of people focus on, once we get through understanding the numbers and why it's needed, is okay, well, who's going to manage this and who's going to look after it for me, and what type of tenants are going to live there. So this tenant screening is integral. So we don't want to just put anyone in there, and that's where number 2 comes in. So specialised property managers. So people, so in all the areas that we work in, we've got specialised property managers who understand the product, they understand the market, and they understand it's not just about getting bums on seats and rooms filled. It's about selecting a good dynamic for the household. So we don't want one type of demographic. So we don't want to put, all
tradies in.
Yeah, all tradies in, no offense tradies, but likelihood is they're going to get together after work, maybe have some drinks, and then it becomes more of a share house. Likewise, that we don't want to put all mature age tenants that are retired and live at home. That might also cause a bit of a problem. So what we want to do is mix the demographics up and have a good balance of different types of demographics. And that seems to work really well from an ongoing perspective as well. Target working professionals, which we've touched on plenty, not students. That's what we haven't touched on. You can.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about that. We did a conversion for a client in a regional area fairly recently, about 6 months ago, and we took it from a 2-bed, 1-bath, and we converted it and renovated the whole thing to a 3-bed, 3-bath, 3-kitchenette. And the 3 tenants that we got was a doctor, a nurse, and an engineer. And that's no word of a lie. I was really impressed with, the quality of tenants that
were selected.
Took it up, yeah.
And that purely came from obviously the manager understanding the product and also not being in a rush just to take anyone. The first 2 rooms filled really quickly, and the 3rd room, she just wasn't quite happy with applicants coming through. The owner was happy to wait, and then ended up getting another professional person that wanted to rent in that area. And the rents range in that one.
380. Oh, now you tested me. 380. Was there one in 400?
I think it was sort of like maybe just 400, like 320 to 400 in a regional area, and high quality professionals. So again, the point is we're just being proven time and time again, it's not low socio, it's not students, and it's in all areas. It's not just in metropolitan.
Yeah, just to touch on the students, the reason we don't go for students, guys, is universities provide housing for students, and you don't want to compete with universities. Two, they're only there for 9 months of the year, so the other 3 months they generally go home. And thirdly, coming from someone who was a student once, they party a lot and cause a ruckus. So it's not really what you want in your investment property.
Very good.
Oh, very good. Very good.
So fourth one, moving on, the maintenance and the common area, we touched on that earlier. So the property manager, so that's a question we get, is like, do I, as the owner, do I need to organise the lawns? Do I need to organise the cleaning? The property manager will organise those communal cleans monthly, and also the lawn maintenance. It's about monthly in winter, and then obviously usually bi-monthly in summer. So all of that gets organised through the property management. It just comes out of the rent when you get paid each month. So it's not something that you have to organise. And I think that's often a concern to investors, like how much input am I going to have? And working with the right property manager that specialise in these, it's basically once they're set up, you'll only hear, if there's a changeover, if something, if there's a maintenance issue, but usually it's because they've taken care of it. Hey, this happens. It's a need-to-know basis. It's very hands-off for the investor once it's set up and ready to go.
Yeah, guys, having someone like a cleaner go through every month is also an extra set of eyes on the property, so regularly. So rather than just doing the quarterly inspections, you've got someone there monthly in the common areas, and they can just see if anything's up, like just might be time to have a look, but it's just good to have an extra set of eyes there, that's all.
Absolutely. I think there's a few people, I was like, why are they laughing? I think they're laughing at you partying. Someone was partying. And finally, guys, the fifth one, get the mix right for easy management. So we touched on getting the mix right in terms of demographics for the tenant, but a mix from designing a suitable property, ensuring there's adequate parking, selecting the right tenants, and all of this comes into making sure that it's a positive living environment and encourages long-term tenancies. So, it's not a one-trick pony, and it's all rolled in together that make these things successful. Alrighty, we are about to dive in. There's been some awesome questions coming through, and we are going to answer all of these at the end, guys. So thank you for hanging in there. We're about to get into the case studies of what we've done for some past clients, what we've got for some current clients. Unfortunately, we can't show you everything that we've done, but we've picked some relevant case studies for you to show you and talk about them.
How are we going for time? About an hour, hey?
We are an hour, so I reckon if you can get through these in the next 10, then we've got a good 20 minutes to answer questions and have a good discussion at the end.
All right.
Can you do it?
No, just a heads up, guys.
He can do it.
This will take me longer than 10 minutes.
He can do it.
But let's go. All right, so case study number one. So this investor has asked to remain nameless. But so it is currently producing a 12.9% gross return. So we located land in an area with high rental demand and economic diversity. We then constructed a 5-bed, 5-bath rooming house. Now, what we did with this one, guys, we forecast that and we've done it time and time again, we're always conservative with what we are projecting the income that we're going to get. We put down that we were going to get $270 a week per room for this. By the time it was built, we then got $310 for 3 rooms and $300 for 2 rooms. So this project is in Southeast Queensland. Total project cost was $602,000. It was a 12-month time frame, and so that's from acquisition, going through the whole land settlement process, designs, going through the BA, and then construction. It was a 12-month process. It was completed in February 2024. It's now producing a 12.9% gross return and gross rental income of $1,530 per week, and that's with 1 week vacancy allowance. So the income after costs on this is based on an 80% LVR, is just shy of $28,000. So I just want to touch on that, guys. When we're talking about the income after costs, we're basing this on an 80% LVR as though the client has the cash available for the 20%, so that they're not borrowing those funds to do this. When we take you through, when a client comes through and signs up and we have an opportunity for them, we actually go through both scenarios, depending on whether they have the cash in the bank ready to put towards that 20%, or whether they're borrowing it from another property and they're actually borrowing 100% of the cost. So just for the ease of this presentation, they are borrowing 80% and they have 20% cash in the bank. So this one is just shy of 28,000 income, and that's also based on the income and the principal being paid. So when we build these as a construction loan, we can only get a principal and interest loan. The lenders that we use, we can get an 80% LVR, and I'd say majority of our clients get an 80% LVR to build these. But we get an 80% LVR, and then that's a principal and interest loan. The lenders that we use will only offer an interest-only loan on existing rooming houses. So anything that's gone through construction will be principal and interest, and anything that's existing, they will offer interest only. But for all these, all our clients have built these, so they're on principal and interest. So that 28,000 includes all the income that's come in and also all the principal that's been paid off the loan. So a really good outcome. Guys, actually, while I'm here, I'll just quickly talk about it, is the loans for these. Like I said, we can get an 80% LVR. It is a mixture. So it's a hybrid between a commercial loan and a residential loan facility. So it's a commercial valuation paired with a residential loan facility over 25 years. Now, where was I going with that? It's principal and interest. But what it actually allows people to do, so we have people come to us and they said, I've spoken to my broker, I can only borrow $500,000 as an example. And that's based off a standard investment property, giving them a 4 or 5% return. What these actually allow you to do is, because we have a commercial valuation done, they actually use when calculating servicing, they actually use all the proposed rental income. They shade it 80%, just like you normally would with a standard rental property. It gets shaded 80%, but they use that 80% to go towards servicing. So for some people who can only borrow $500,000 for a standard investment property, when we're actually looking at this strategy, they might be able to borrow $700,000 or $800,000. So it's if you think, I can only borrow $300,000 or $400,000, whatever the case may be, I do urge you to get a second opinion from another broker, and more than happy for you guys to reach out and we can put you in touch with a broker who can actually have a look at your scenario, because it's quite likely that you're going to be able to borrow more money and still be positive cash flow. So reach out, guys, if you're in that scenario. All right, case study number 2. So this one, guys, this project, again, it was a vacant block of land, regional area, and we built another 5-bed, 5-bath rooming house, single story. We build single stories wherever we can. Need about 400 square meters, give or take, to do a single story. Some of the sites in around Brisbane, they are smaller than that, so we go double story, but wherever possible, we go for single story. It's cheaper to build, it's faster to build, and just, less maintenance. It's not double story and that sort of stuff. So wherever we can, we go single. So this one is a single in a regional area of southeast Queensland. Total project cost $737,000. Project timeframe for this one was 10 months. Again, guys, that was from onboarding right through to land acquisition, settlement, designs, and through to construction. The gross yield, as I mentioned, 11.4%. And the gross income for this one is $1,650 per week. This client actually did this project with cash, so unencumbered after all costs. So his rates, management, what else we got? Rates, management,
utilities. So electricity, water, Wi-Fi, the lawns, the cleaning, and the property management. There was actually a question from Cheryl here that was, where did it go? Cheryl, what's the net of PM property management fees, ongoing maintenance cost? So in this example, obviously they're all slightly different, but all the things that we just mentioned, obviously it's a gross income of 84,000, and then the income after costs. Oh, you've taken off the screen.
Yeah.
Is 64,000. So in this scenario, the outgoings for the year are about $20,000 if it was unencumbered. So that's not any. If you owned it outright and you didn't have a mortgage.
No interest payments.
Hopefully that answers that for you.
And guys, I've just left in this one, just showed you the cash on cash return, 8.7%. So if you think about the return that he's getting for the cash that he's put in, so it's cost him $737,000. His return on that cash is 8.73%. Now you compare that, so that doesn't include any sort of capital growth either. That's simply just the project and the return that it's giving him. You compare that to if he put that $737,000 in a bank account and what sort of return he would get on that. I don't actually know at the moment. It's probably 4-5%, something like that. So he's, close to double the sort of return that he would get if it was in the bank. So really good outcome for Jason here. Yeah. I just want to add there.
Can I add something before you jump into that bit? Sorry. And just in terms of that's not taking into consideration any capital growth or anything like that. If we were to go and do the same project in the same region right now, total cost, land purchase, stamp duty, build costs, furniture pack, holding costs, our fees, everything, you'd be looking at around 900,000. So it was finished February last year. And as you can see, land prices have gone up, build prices have gone up slightly, but and we'll get into. There's another question there about valuations. We'll answer that at the end. But as you can see, this is not even taking into consideration the growth that's happened in that time for the investor. Yeah.
Cool. Yep. All right, so I was just going to add, guys, just a little bit about Jason. So he's a busy professional. He owns his own business and he's very hands-off. And he just pretty much, we sit down with him, work out what he wants to achieve, and then we go and execute it for him. He's now on to his third project with us. So he's obviously got a really good outcome from this. We're partway through construction of his second and we had settlement of his third one just yesterday. So really good outcome. On to the next. Okay, so this one, again, guys, very similar. Vacant land purchase, 5-bed, 5-bath, 4-car, single story on this one. We could only get 4 on this particular one. Southeast Queensland, total project costs $797,000. And project timeline 11 months, completed in June 2024. So again, guys, a little bit about Charlotte. She's a busy professional and she's also a business owner. She came to us because she wanted to obviously invest. She didn't have the time to do it herself and she just wanted someone to take care of it for her. So we sat down with her and figured out exactly what we could do for her based on her budget and her goals. And this is what we came up with. This is giving a gross rental income of $84,000. She got an 80% LVR on this one, and after all costs, principal and interest loan, it's bringing in income of just shy of $19,000. So Charlotte is now also onto her second project with us, so which is really good. She actually she had a site here on the Sunshine Coast in medium density, and we are subdividing that for her and building a duplex on the rear lot. And we've just started, got all our approvals, and we're ready to start construction. So looking forward to getting that one going. On to the next.
Yep.
On to the next.
On to the next.
So this one, guys, you saw some photos of this one just before. These guys are just staying silent as well, behind the curtain. We've actually helped this couple with 2 rooming houses prior to this particular project, and then they came to us and wanted to do something different. Those 2 were in Brisbane. They wanted to do something more regional, more cost effective, and so this is what we managed to do for them. So 10.9% gross return on this one. It's very similar to the others, guys. 5 bed, 5 bath, southeast Queensland. 785,000. 9 months for this one. Completed in August 2024. Gross rental income 1680. So it's set out very similar to the previous couple of projects. However, it does have that double garage, and we do charge more for that double garage. So it gets a little bit more rent. These guys also did this one in cash. So income unencumbered with no loan against it is 62,444 per annum. So guys, if you think they've got 3 of these in their portfolio now, each producing about that much per year, they're getting very close to having 200K net of passive income coming in each and every year. So really, really good outcome for these guys, and just, very thankful that we're able to actually help people like this, get to this stage. And not that these guys are retired yet, they're not. But I'm sure that they'll be looking forward to retiring and have some passive income coming in. So I've left the cash on cash return on the screen for this one as well, guys. For just like I mentioned before, that money was sitting in the bank. They're getting a much better return solely just off the numbers that the project's producing, as opposed to having that money in the bank. That doesn't take into account any sort of capital growth. So really good return, guys, and really good that really happy we're able to help people like this. Alrighty. This one, guys, you've seen that the last few were in more of the regional areas. This one is in more of a metro area. It's just along the northern corridor of Brisbane. This one's currently in the process. We're unconditional. We're not quite settled on the site. However, I just wanted to take you through this, guys, because this has been a really good outcome, and you'll see why. So these guys are new to rooming houses. They haven't got it fairly, I guess when they come on board, they didn't really have an idea of what to expect. Would you agree?
Yeah, they didn't have a background of what rooming accommodation was, but they were looking for an investment strategy that was going to give them some cash flow, but also start to set themselves up. They're not, they're sort of 10 plus years away from retirement, but they're starting to think about that stage of their life. So when they get there, they've got an asset that's producing really, really good cash flow for them.
Yeah. So give you a bit of a rundown on this one. So vacant land, purchased, custom built rooming house, again, single story. It's on the north side of Brisbane. Total project cost. So we've had this priced up with the builder. So we've got the land. We've had it all priced up with the builder. So with our fees, furniture package, and everything included, guys, we're looking at just over 1.2 mil. And the valuation has come back at 1.3 mil. So we haven't even started construction, and they've made about close to 100K of equity, which is really awesome for them. And just to know that they're on the right track, which is really good. We anticipate this is going to be completed later this year, October 2025. So we're currently going through the building approval phase. And once we do actually start construction, it'll take about 5 months to build this. So the projected gross yield is 8.8%. We're expecting $420 per room, so $2,100 a week, which is close to $110,000 per annum. And so the expected income at 80% LVR, principal and interest loan, guys, is $20,276. That includes the principal being paid off the loan. So yeah, really good outcome for these guys. Looking forward to doing the next one as well. Move on to the next.
Yeah.
Ready?
So
benefits.
If we dive into the benefits, if we talk about everything we've just been through. And, you know, we did run through those case studies pretty quickly. So if you do have more questions about them, we can answer those afterwards. But the benefit for investors is positive cash flow. So as you saw in those examples, depending on how the finance is structured, there's a big difference. But ultimately, all of them, after the costs, all of them look after themselves and earn the investor an income each and every year. So that in itself allows people to continue building their portfolio. This is Joel's what he's super passionate about.
So as Bianca said, guys, cash flow positive. Now, I don't know if any of you have had a property in your portfolio that is negatively geared. I personally have, and it is a horrible feeling. It is like having a noose around your neck. Now, the government have got all this stuff around negative gearing, and it is a sham. It is something that ties you to a job. And I want you to have a think about if you had a property in your portfolio that you had to continually put money in each and every month just to pay the outgoings, and the mortgage repayments, how that would make you feel. It literally means that you are tied to your job. And I've been in that position in the past, and I can tell you now, it's not a good feeling. Your perception on property dramatically changes once you get one or two of these style of properties in your portfolio, and you can literally sit back, set and forget, and know that rent is coming in each and every week, and it's going to be more than cover the mortgage payments. So it's a much better feeling, guys. And I really, that feeling that I had years ago of having that negative investment property, it's not a good feeling, guys. So positive cash flow is where it's at, and it also helps you continue to grow your portfolio. If you're negatively geared, you are going to hit the servicing ceiling very quickly, and it means that you might get one or two properties under your belt and you're done and dusted. And the only way to move forward is for you to either go and work more and earn more money, or sell something, which is what a lot of people have to do. They fall into that trap and unfortunately have to sell an asset in order to be able to keep moving forward. So I just wanted to touch on that, guys.
Yeah, really, really good point. And a lot of people in that boat. I think when interest rates rose from quite low to where they sort of have been, and, you know, obviously moving forward, hopefully they continue to sort of come back down. But I feel like if you were negatively geared or just neutrally geared before those increases, there was a lot of people hurting. And, you know, whereas if you're positive cash flow, it absorbs those interest rates. So it's also like, you know, people sometimes think it's a higher risk investment strategy. It's actually lower risk because you've got more buffer there. If interest rates do go through the roof, you've actually got it's not coming out of my pocket. It's just going to come out of the income that I had there. Yeah,
and you've got 5 tenants in these examples. You've actually got 5 tenants in there, guys. So if one tenant vacates and you've got a turnover, you've still got 4 other tenants paying rent. In a normal standard investment property, if someone vacates and you don't have a tenant for a week or two, that's coming out of your pocket. Those mortgage payments are coming out of your pocket. So I just wanted to touch on those examples, the case studies that we used. They were all based, the ones that were based on an 80% LVR were all based on a 6.99% interest rate. Back a couple of years when people were on 4%, 3.5%, you know, some people were even below 2%. You know, just imagine the sort of cash flow that these things will create when interest rates actually start coming down again. And this year, I do think that we are going to see a couple of interest rate drops this year.
Yeah. Awesome. Which basically is point number 2 here as well. So high yield investment, unlike standard investment properties with only one tenant, rooming house investments can generate up to 5 rental incomes, and sometimes 2 to 3 times better returns if structured correctly. So again, just repeating what Joel said there, it's really, really important. Win-win for investors and tenants. As we rewind back to earlier in the piece, obviously you can do really well from this yourself as the investor, but there's also, you're providing more accommodation for the growing rental market for singles and couples. So a really good opportunity for both investor and tenant alike. And finally, solid and stable investment, higher occupancy. Joel just ran through that before. And
I've skipped ahead.
You know it inside out and back to front. You don't need the slides. But yeah, basically that demand and making sure that we're buying in areas that the tenants want to live in, are working in, and that all comes down to the right due diligence, the right market research, which we can help with.
Yeah.
Cool. So before we start answering all questions, a lot of times people are like, well, how can you help us? So basically, Joel and I, we have a full turnkey service to help investors from the very start of understanding what their goals and priorities are. Now, everyone is in a different situation, financially, different stage of life, and it is a conversation and discussion that involves you yourself as the investor, what do you want to achieve? But then also a big part of that is your mortgage broker as well, understanding your financial capacity, not just for this one project, but for the one beyond that. So having a good plan basically is the start of the process of working with us. So we operate within a 3-hour radius of the Sunshine Coast, and we basically source suitable sites for our clients based on their goals, financial capacity, and also tie that in with the rooming accommodation requirements to make sure that you're fully compliant. We do all of the market research in the area, making sure that we don't just focus on one industry areas. We want economic diversity, lots of infrastructure coming to that. So not only right now that this property will rent really well, but in the future it's going to continue to rent really, really well. We will put forward a proposal which includes the suburb profiles, expected costs, expected return on investment, and timeline. And at that point in time, our clients can decide if they want to move forward with that opportunity. We will then negotiate on your behalf and oversee the acquisition period all the way up until settlement. So that's essentially stage 1. Stage 2, we step into more of a development management role, and basically we oversee everything before handing over to the builder to build the property. So that includes liaising with the professionals such as the designers, town planners, engineer, the builder, helping you, go over the contract and get everything set up. We'll also oversee the construction phase for you up until completion. So some of our clients have never even been to site. We'll do the pre-inspections of the site before purchase. We will do the inspections throughout the build process, and we will take handover for the client as well. So, for some people, they want to be involved and they will come to those inspections as well. But for others that are busy professionals, they might go to the property once or not at all. So we really are your eyes and your ears to help you all the way through the process. And all the way, once we get handover from the builder, we will arrange a furniture package to be installed, professional photos, and then handing over to the property manager. So at the moment, a question we get asked often is how long is the build time frame? So for a single story at the moment, it does depend on what area, but in majority of areas that we're working in, it's approximately 6 months, sometimes less for a 5-bed, 5-bath single story.
Yeah. So guys, as you can see, our goal here is to get you guys a great outcome, and throughout what we've seen in the past is that we are always light. We are always light on our what we predict the rental income, forecast the rental income to be, and so we're there from start right through to finish, and we're there every step of the way to ensure that we get you the outcome at the back end, from right through construction, furniture, property management, and getting that house filled. So it's our goal to get you an outcome to help you continue moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think someone was asking before about specific suburbs. So we don't go into specific suburbs as such on these meetings, but we basically operate within a 3-hour radius of the Sunshine Coast. We go as far south as South Brisbane, all the way through to Hervey Bay, and a 3-hour radius of that. So how we select areas for our clients is based on those things we mentioned before, which is what are their goals, what are their priorities, what is their financial capacity, and what is their goal beyond this investment property, because all of that needs to be considered, as well as obviously finding something suitable to do the rooming accommodation. So that's how we select areas, and we certainly don't just pick one area or two areas and just, one size fits all, because that's not how this works at all. But really good question. Really, really good question. I think, so before we dive into the Q&A, do you would just want to flip back to our takeaways from tonight? We are nearly at 8 o'clock, so thank you all for staying on, and I'm really keen to spend some time answering questions at the end. But let's just quickly wrap up what we've covered tonight. You can go. And you may take it. All right.
So as you can see, guys, we've got an extremely tight rental market. We've got building approvals are currently falling short by about 17,000. I think it was about 15,000 homes annually. Population growth is dramatically on the rise. Large infrastructure projects are currently under construction and in the pipeline for Queensland. There is a big push for the 2032 Olympics. Shifting household demographics and 1 to 2 person households are on the rise. And guys, this is all a perfect storm for the investor to actually see that this is happening and provide housing for those that are going to need it. And so rooming houses are the solution to help with all the above targets. You just think about it, guys. A standard house will take, 6 months. Standard house, will take 6-7 months to build, however long it is. You're getting one family, or it might just be a couple living in there. We're doing this 5 times faster. We're building 5 front doors that can have 5 separate tenancies in them. So we're actually creating housing a lot faster than what you would, that a lot of all these other developers are actually doing it. So you can actually do well for yourself and help others at the same time. And this is a massive opportunity for you as a savvy investor to actually get into the market. And prices are still rising dramatically. Build costs are also going up, not anywhere like they were, but we're seeing roughly about 7.5% per year. So from, back in 2020, we had a huge sharp rise in build prices. They've leveled out now, but we're still seeing rises. And the earlier you get into the market, the better you are long term. And I've done a couple of Facebook Lives on this around, it's not about timing the market, it's time in the market. And, there's no better time than today to get into the market and really ride that growth because, the prices that we were seeing even just 12 months ago, it's never going to happen again, guys. So while you can, if you're on the fence, jump off the fence and get into the market.
Awesome.
Cool. We're into Q&A.
We are in Q&A now.
Right.
So
both on.
Let's scroll back to the start, and there's so many great questions in here. Some of these we've answered, so the ones that we've answered, I won't go through and cover those again. So Mark's asking, do you go through a DA or CDC equivalent?
So it's a BA, so it's a building approval. So DA is, I think CDC is New South Wales term, and I'm assuming that is basically your construction certificate. So that is equivalent to our building approval, if that's what it is. A DA is obviously full council application. Up here in Queensland, it's a building approval, and I think the building approval is equivalent to your CDC down in New South Wales. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Awesome. While we're waiting for that to come through, Grace, what's the difference between building couple appropriate house in terms of building, etc.? Is it just bigger rooms?
So we can make the rooms slightly bigger. So a couple, we might even have 2 rooms in the one, essentially.
2 bedrooms. Yeah,
sorry, 2 bedrooms. So rather than it being 1 living room, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, we might have 2 bedrooms, a living room and a bathroom, if that makes sense. So you're saving costs on, you don't have to provide that extra bathroom. So there's a reduction in build costs, and there's probably, if we're going to create couples, there would probably be a slight reduction in build size as well. which would mean a reduction in build costs as well.
Awesome. Good question. Good question. Do you only do new builds or modification of existing?
Cool. So we are focusing more on new builds at the moment. We do have a couple of builders that we work with in the conversion space. The main one that we have been working with is currently overseas. And so right at this point, we aren't doing conversions, but in 6 months' time, that might change. But at the moment, we are focusing more on new builds. And it's actually a good question from a lending perspective or from a cash perspective. If you are borrowing, if you're doing a new build, you only need to put 20% deposit in, and you're compared to a conversion, where a conversion you have to put 20% deposit in, and then also come up with the cash to do the actual renovation. So yes, overall a conversion is less cash. However, if you are lending, quite often a new build will require less cash from you. So for someone who doesn't have a great deal of cash, a new build can be the better option.
Yeah, just to rephrase that. So overall, you might spend less total development costs in a buy and convert than a new build. However, because of the cash that you've had to put into that to do the renovation, you will put more cash into a conversion than you will into a new build, if that sort of covers it.
That makes sense, yeah. Yep. And so it really is a case-by-case scenario, and it depends on how the person is actually financing the project.
Absolutely. And for some people, it is a better outcome. Also, good question. Love this concept and love you guys. Only concern is resale value. I guess it's still yet to be determined, as I'm assuming rooming houses are typically newish concept. This is the only reason I'm hesitant to develop a rooming house. Capital growth unknown or hard to value. I guess my question is, do you factor in capital growth, or is it more high cash flow?
Yeah, so it's definitely a cash flow. It's definitely a cash flow strategy. Capital growth really comes with the land. And so, I'll answer it in two ways. The land on this site as a rooming house and the land next door, they're both the same size. They're both going to increase in value. If you knock those houses down and over 20 years' time, they're both increasing in value by $500,000. It's the same thing. So it is the land that actually goes up. These are valued on a commercial basis. So it's actually the rental income. Generally speaking, it's the rental income that determines their value. So as rents rise, which they currently are, the value is actually rising with it. So they are valued a little bit different. Resale, look, not many people sell them. As I said, they are a cash flow strategy. There are quite a few people down in Brisbane actually doing it, but I wouldn't say there's that are doing it as a strategy to develop and sell. However, there's not a lot of people in the regional markets doing that because it is still quite new. But yeah, it is more of a cash flow strategy for most people.
And the other thing to mention is, if you did want to sell or need to sell for any particular reason, your resale would be, you would be selling that to another investor for the return on investment that it's bringing in. So, you're not selling it like the 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house next door in the area that's got one tenant. You're selling it based on, hey, it's producing, in some of these examples, $1,700 per week per annum, and that's what your sale price is based on. So it's a little bit different.
I'll just one more thing I just want to touch on that. The self-managed super fund market is definitely growing. Now, self-managed super funds can't build these. They can't borrow to construct. If they've got enough cash in the super fund, they can do it in cash, but they can't actually borrow funds to develop. So these rooming houses actually perform better than a lot of commercial premises. So for a self-managed super fund, one that's finished and operating is highly attractive. So keep that in mind. There's a very good chance that it would go to a self-managed super fund.
Absolutely. How do you get paid? What are your fees? So we have a buyer's agency fee that covers those things that we talked about before. And basically it's an end-to-end service within that. So all of the examples that we went through tonight, when we talked about total development costs, that includes our fees. So yeah, more than happy to go through those with you if you have questions on how we can help. But yeah, gross return on investment and the net incomes that we went through all factor in our fees as well. Buying under superannuation an option. You just touched on that.
Yeah, so it's definitely an option, guys, and just depends on your scenario.
You need advice.
Yeah,
advice.
We always say superannuation and self-managed super funds are highly regulated. We always encourage you to go and get specialised advice, and we can help with that. We have people that we can refer you on to. But yes, it's definitely doable as a super fund, and it just does depend on your particular circumstances.
Awesome. All right. I'm in the chat box now, and all right. So many good questions, guys. All right, slides. All right.
What is it?
Yeah, what is hang on. Sorry, I missed a couple. What size block is this example on? That was early on, but maybe just talk about it in general.
Yeah, so that particular one was 700 and something. Oh, I don't know which example it was.
I think it was the design with the garage.
Oh yeah, that was on just over 700 square meters. However, it did have it was retained and batted up at the back. So the building pad, I guess you could say, was about 500 square meters. And you can do, guys, we can do these on 300 square meters. We just go double story. So there's absolutely no issues with going smaller. And in the more densified infill sites, we'll only get a 300 square meter site. And so we just work with what we've got, and we can create five really good sized rooms on just a 300 square meter site. We just go double story.
Awesome.
Can I just add to that real quick?
Yeah,
we tend not to go with sites too big. You as the investor, you cover maintenance of the site, so lawn mowing and gardening and all that sort of stuff. So the bigger the site, the bigger the more that's gonna cost. So we tend to try and stick, relatively smallish, 500-600 square meters for a single story. I'd say would be about average.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What is a residential service?
Residential service is I think it's a government department. It's a government department, and they're there to regulate essentially people who are providing a residential service. So it's really there for more of the lower income earners, and it's there for a provider to ensure that a provider who is providing that service of accommodation is providing it and meets all the minimum requirements that they must. And so they can come down very, very heavily on people who aren't providing those minimum standards. And they're there to ensure that, we don't have slumlords who have, a 3-bedroom house with 20 people living in them and people living in the closet and all that sort of stuff. So there's minimum standards that you need to adhere to. And depending on the design, like I mentioned earlier, would just depend on whether you need to register with residential services. Most of our designs we don't have to, but it is a
consideration
when designing. Yeah.
Good question. Have you ever done couples room, single room layout?
Yep, absolutely. Not so much in the purpose builds. We haven't done a lot of them. But we definitely have in the conversions where we do little 3-bed conversions. I've done quite a few of them now. And really it would just depend on people's budget. If they came to us and they couldn't, they didn't have the budget for a 5-bedder, or, they wanted to provide that couple's accommodation to really minimise, even turnover even more. We could scale it right down to say a 3-bedder, have 2 3 areas, have 2 couples areas and then 1 singles area. So we've definitely done them, but more so in the conversion space.
Awesome. Is it possible to have interconnected rooms with a lockable door in between?
Yes, you could. Yep, I'm anticipating that you're trying to future-proof it, so you could have it as a couple room, or you could have it as 2 single rooms. I don't see any reason why you couldn't. However, there would be a lot of noise transfer from room to room. In that instance, you would have to figure out exactly how to minimise that noise transfer if they were rented to 2 singles.
Yep. Awesome. This exemption is so much better. What is the average construction time period for a 5-bedroom rooming house? So as we mentioned earlier, so it depends what area. We use a number of different builders, but currently a single story, 5-bed, 5-bath, in the majority of areas that we're working in is 6 months or under construction time. So, and we're seeing that consistently, and we have for the last couple of years, which is really impressive, and gives a lot of confidence, I think. Good question.
Seeing a lot of names here I don't know. This is good.
Yeah. What are lease terms generally with the rooms? Monthly, quarterly, 6 monthly, yearly? Awesome question. So minimum in terms of lease terms with rooming accommodation, minimum lease term is 3 months. So it can't be short stay, must be 3 months plus. Standard is a 6 or a 12-month lease. And in terms of how long tenants stay for, some tenants will stay for 6 months, some will stay for 5 years. So in terms of length of lease, I wouldn't say there's a real average, but the things that we talked about earlier in terms of attracting a quality tenant, doing those things that encourage people to stay longer will definitely stack the cards in your favour of having those long-term tenants. Some of our personal ones, we did the first one in 2018.
2018, we've got a tenant that moved in 2018. She's still there.
Yeah, she's still there. So, the quality and the design plays a big factor into that, but also people's circumstances. Some people's change, some don't, but it's definitely not short stay. And the other thing to remember is obviously if you do have a changeover of 1 room, you still have 4 incomes coming from the other 4 rooms as well. So it's just nice. If you do have a changeover, it's not a huge deal. And because of the research that we do, generally when one person moves out, you've usually got the next tenant moving in the following week. So they're no vacancies in terms of long periods or anything like that. What is the difference between building... yep. Thanks, Grace. You wrote it in both, which is awesome. So would building a duplex of 5 persons per side make it efficient build, i.e. 2 titles? Good question.
Wayne, it absolutely would, and we've tried and we can't do it. So, we've had advice from a couple of different councils now around exactly that. And the exemption allows for 5 people across the premises, and they're basically saying that, well, my argument was, at the end, we're going to strata title them. We've got 2 premises, but they're saying that the whole block of land as a whole is the premise, and so you're only allowed maximum of 5 people across the whole premises. So it's a good question. We've tried, but we've been, unfortunately, haven't been able to do it. Yep,
absolutely. Would have been great if we could. Would have been great, and maybe they'll change in the future. Maybe. Is there any minimum requirements, parking, street sizes, all street parking or allocated driveway, garages as per the lease?
In Brisbane, they have their own room accommodation code, and their minimum parking requirements is 2. One of them needs to be a disability compliant park, so that essentially means that it turns into like 3 parks. The exemption is actually silent on the amount of car parks required. So, if you really wanted to, you could probably provide 0 car parks. It would not be a very good product at all. And, I can't see that the tenants would really appreciate it, and your neighbours would absolutely hate it. So it's not something that we would ever bring to the market. But in Brisbane, is a minimum 2. So you could say, statewide, it's a minimum 2, but we always provide more where we can.
Yeah, awesome. And as we have gone a little bit over time, guys, we are going to go through all of these questions as well. But if anyone does need to jump off, if you want to talk about your specific circumstances, I'm going to drop in a link so you can book a call with Dimitri. He will be able to answer any questions, dive into your scenario. So I'll do that shortly. But I am mindful of your time.
Yeah, just quickly on that, guys. Dimitri is a property strategist, and he will be able to help you work out what your next step is. Dive into your scenario, work through everything, and figure out what your next step is, and hopefully what your next step is after that. So, guys, it's absolutely free to book an appointment. So, jump on. The link's there. Just book it, and book a call with him. And we can go from there.
I'll drop it in now and I'll drop it in afterwards. But yeah, for anyone that does need to go and you still have questions or you want to talk about your circumstances, best to book that now because I imagine he'll probably have a few calls in the coming days. Okay. Awesome question, by the way, guys. This is great. Is there any restrictions to visitors in the context of 5 people per complex?
Yeah, yep, there is, and it's a good question and one we get all the time. So it's a maximum of 5 people. People obviously have visitors and sleepovers, but so in order to meet the requirements of the approval and also the insurance, it is a maximum of 5 people residing there. We know people are going to have sleepovers and that sort of stuff, and that's fine. We just need to make sure that it doesn't happen regularly and, someone's essentially starts living there. If it gets too regular, the property manager finds out very quickly because other residents let them know because they're not allowed to have, their partner living there. So why should the other person? So yeah, it does get stamped out pretty quickly if it starts happening too regularly. But yeah, we know people have sleepovers and that's fine.
Awesome. Sorry, I just lost my place. What is the total square meters of the house?
So I would say the actual living component ranges from 175 square meters, give or take, up to 195 square meters, give or take. And then plus any other car parking. So then, there's about 36 square meters if we do a double garage or a double carport. Sometimes we don't do any covered car parking depending on the client's budget. But there's just additional concrete. But the actual living space of the houses are anywhere from 175 to 195 square metres.
Awesome. No worries, Con. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us. All right. Do you have many retro fit outs of existing properties or all for purpose built? We have talked about that already. Rooming. That's when we're talking about rooming houses. Are your builds normally 5-person maximum? Yes, they are, which we've covered.
It just comes down to the client, guys. And, some people want the best return they can get and will go 5 rooms. And someone else is happy with a property just being neutrally cash flow. And knowing that they're going to have different demographics in terms of couples in there as well. So it really just depends on the client as to what we design.
There's another question there on conversions, which we've sort of touched on, that currently at this time we're not doing those. In your experience, is it harder to find a property manager or more expensive to manage? Do you only select agencies that take these properties on their books? So as we mentioned earlier, in all of the areas that we work in, we've got specialised property managers that we can refer you to. Their fees, they all range, but I would say the majority are around the 9.9%, including GST in most areas. As you get into Brisbane, there's a lot more competition, and the range sort of goes from around that 10%, some up to 16%, and some in around the middle. So in majority of the areas that we work in, around 10% is average. And in all those examples that allowed for those property management fees, so it well and truly covers that. And in Brisbane, we generally give you a few options that you can contact and see, because they've all got different pricing structures. We just let you decide who's going to be the best fit for you in that instance. Are loans resi or commercial? Joel did touch on that, and you've said just answered, so thank you.
Oh, yeah, sweet.
We answered that one. Are the big Are the big banks lending to these or two-tier lenders, and are the interest rates standard or resi rates?
Yeah, good question. So no, the big banks aren't lending. I guess it's probably only a matter of time before they do come into this space, but there's probably 2 or 3 lenders that do it. And we are very grateful for them. If we were having running this webinar 2 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, there was no lenders in this space that are actually offering this. So it was really, really difficult to get finance. A lot of people were going down the commercial route, but this actually, it is a residential loan facility mixed with a commercial valuation. And so rates, I'd say on average, are between 7 to 7.3, and that's principal and interest. And that all depends on the client as well and their circumstances. But yeah, just in the low 7s at the moment is the average, and that's principal and interest. So yeah, like pretty good rate, I'd say, and quite competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of thing, if you want to talk about your financial circumstances, again, if you book a call with Dimitri, he can go through your circumstances and then, just explain the lending side of things too, because it is a bit to get your head around. How do the banks val them? And in terms of capital growth, we have touched on that.
Yeah. So commercial val based on the income. And you'll find the more metro you go, the higher value you'll get. But it's in comparison to the more regional areas, the land content's lower, so obviously the valuation's going to come in lower. But yeah, valuations have been coming back fine. And as you can see, like just one of the case studies we went through, that's happened 2 to 3 times now, where the valuation pre-construction has actually come in higher than the total project costs. It's not something that we can guarantee, but it has definitely happened a couple of times. And it's awesome when it does.
Awesome. There's just a question there about exact suburbs. As mentioned before, all of the scenarios that we've been over tonight and the areas that we cover are in a 3-hour radius of the Sunshine Coast. We select areas specific to each investor's personal circumstances. Moving on. These don't work everywhere. What criteria do you look in particular suburb to make it work?
Touched on it before, guys, like, close to amenities, close to transport, employment, that sort of thing. We prefer infill sites. We don't like big greenfield sites where they're, creating 100 lots out the back of Timbuktu. We haven't done one in an area like that, so I actually don't know how it would perform, but I just don't think too many people, it's not attractive to people. So, what's attractive for people is being close to things. Infill sites, that sort of thing.
Do you encourage or recommend avoiding that an owner occupies a room logistically and also financially? There's 2 parts to that.
Yeah, guys, so I don't think it's an issue at all. It's a good way for you to own, get into the housing market, own your own home and have someone else pay your mortgage, or it might be 2 other people, it might be 3 other people paying your mortgage. You may have some issues in terms of insurance, but we do have a couple of different insurance brokers that we can put you onto who can run through, different scenarios with you. But yeah, it's a great option for people to do that and actually get into the market or whatever they might do and have someone else paying the rent. Really good strategy. I'd love to see younger people utilising that strategy. It's an awesome way to get ahead, and I've done it myself where I've lived in property and rented out certain parts, and it really, when you're younger, it really helps you to leapfrog and build your portfolio.
Awesome. What percentage management do the property management fees come to? Covered that one. For the example where it's leverage borrowing 80%, how much cash in general is required in total for the acquisition, furnishing, stamp duty, etc.? So at the moment, it depends on the total spend of the project, but as a guide, entry level cash required if someone was doing an 80% LVR, buyer's agency fee, furniture package, stamp duty, all of the stuff that you need cash for, you need around $240,000 of cash to cover your 20% deposit plus those other things. So
that's in today's market. That's not the examples we used.
Oh, yes, that's true. Yeah. That's right now in today's market to do a new build. So in those earlier examples, again, it was probably in the low 200s at the time. But obviously as land prices have increased, that 20% deposit that you have to put in is a little bit higher. Obviously stamp duty goes up with that. Our fees and the furniture package hasn't changed too much. It's just those other aspects. So hopefully that answers the question. Spread the risk, diversity with one asset, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So if someone, you're never ever going to have a house that's empty, unlike a normal investment property. And generally we see if there's a turnover, there's only one turnover at a time. You still got four other people, paying off your mortgage. So
beautiful. So if you rent one room to a couple, does that mean you need to have one vacant? Yes. So if you had a 5-bed, 5-bath rooming house and you wanted to put a couple in one of the rooms and both of them on the lease, you wouldn't be able to rent that 5th room out. So if you do a 5-bed, 5-bath rooming house, you would... It's 5 single people. You'd have to say no to a couple or leave a room vacant to be fully compliant. So in that instance, if you did want to appeal to a couple market or at least have one room available, you would essentially do a couple room and then 3 single rooms in the design part of it, so you could accommodate that market. Do you find higher wear and tear on the property being more transient in nature, i.e. higher turnover of tenants, more tenants equals more visitors, etc.? I'll let you answer this.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say you get more wear and tear, to be honest, no.
Because they're furnished, that's part of the reason. Obviously, it's attractive because it's people just turn up and it's fully furnished. But another reason is if you were having people move furniture in and out all the time, that would create a lot of wear and tear. The furniture stay is so you don't have people taking stuff in and out. And in terms of visitors, it's only one person. So you're not having droves of people come in to visit. Like you might have a visitor, but it's highly unlikely that you would have groups of people there.
Yeah. The rooms just don't cater for that amount of people. So unlike a share house where you've got 4 mates living together and they're like, hey, everyone come around on Friday night, let's get everyone round. It's just not like that. They're very quiet. They're surprisingly very quiet.
Yeah. Just about the areas again, we've covered that. That you were getting some feedback on CDC. Yep. Said correct. Sounds right. Yep. Makes sense.
Yep.
Thanks heaps, Jolyon. Great presentation. Have to sign out. Yep.
Thank
Awesome. In my experience, you can revalue and refinance and you'll often find it has increased in value. So maybe able to exit with some equity out.
Yep, absolutely. So when the valuer actually values them at the front end, they do shade all the rent. And so once it is full and operating, it is highly likely that you will get a higher valuation. We haven't had any of our clients actually reval any of the new build rooming houses. We have had one reval a conversion that we did. And it did value a lot higher, which was awesome. But we haven't had any of our clients actually refinance post-construction once it's full.
Awesome. Great presentation, Bianca and Joel. Looking forward to getting started on construction soon. Us too. We're looking forward to getting you out of the ground. Are people using company trust structures with corporate trustee?
Good question. I'll touch on it now. Won't talk about it too much, but yes, company trust structure is what we would suggest majority of people purchase in. Everyone's situation is different, so we always direct you to your accountant or and your solicitor just to get their advice around that. But in most instances, yes, a trust structure is the preferred method or the preferred purchasing entity. There's a couple of reasons for that. That is asset protection, whatever's in that trust. If you own anything, you don't actually own that property. The trust owns the property, so anything you own outside of that trust is protected. There is also tax benefits in that if the property or the trust earns a profit at the end of the year, it can actually be distributed to family members, spouses, or whatever. So let's say you're owning in a trust. The husband has earned $120,000 for the year, but the wife hasn't worked for that year. The property earns $20,000. That can be distributed to the wife and go towards her income. So it really brings down otherwise the taxable income. If it was owned in their personal names, that $20,000 would go against their personal, like the husband's personal tax. So, and obviously increase his taxable income. So it just gives them flexibility on where they want to direct the money. There's also land tax benefits in purchasing in trusts as opposed to purchasing everything in your own personal name. And there's also lending benefits. So trusts can definitely help you grow your portfolio if it's structured correctly, and it's something that we can help with, and Dimitri can definitely help you through that process of why it's better to purchase in a trust as well.
Awesome. So many questions coming in, guys. We're trying to get through these for you and answer them all, but they're really great. What would you say is the percentage of build cost difference if it's a 2-story build compared to a low set?
Yeah, I'd say about, give or take, 80K, 80 grand, 70 or 80 grand.
It may not make much sense, but it is possible to convert a purpose-built rooming house back to a standard house in the future. How would you go about reclassifying from a 1B to a 1A?
Yeah, simple. I wouldn't even probably, if you were going to convert it back, I don't even think I'd bother changing the class unless it was an issue for the next person purchasing it with their finance. You can use, make sure I don't stuff this up. You can use a class 1B as a class 1A, but you can't use a class 1A as a class 1B. So the class 1B is actually a higher use. So there'd be no real reason to drop it back down to a class 1A unless the purchaser was having issues with their finance and the lender was like, oh, it's a class 1B, I won't loan against it. That would be the only reason I would really sort of drop it back.
Great. Awesome. Thank you for clarity. Great webinar. Are vals done more on a cap rate basis? You pretty much answered that. Yep.
Yeah. I'm definitely not across exactly how the valuers value them, whether it's cap rate or anything like that. We leave it to the mortgage brokers and the valuers. But I do see, obviously, have valuations coming in, so I have a bit of an idea of how it's done.
Awesome. Oh, thanks, Sharon. That's really nice. Everyone, a few people jumping out. Not all interesting. Just educate yourself. Not hard. It's just not that hard to do yourself. Thanks, Tarzan. Awesome. Much better than a family with 3 rowdy teenagers. And that's interesting. Like, people are always worried about 5 people and 5 car parks. If a mum and dad have 3 teenagers and they're still living at home once they get to 16, 17 and 18, it's quite easy for that family to have 5 cars as well and have friends coming over that also have cars. So, as we've said, we talk about designing. We add as much car parking to the site as it can accommodate, just to get the cars off the street. So, really interesting comment.
Guys, we're like, me particularly, I'm really conscious of neighbourhood amenity, and I'm conscious of not putting the neighbour's nose out of joint. And so if you do a terrible job at this, neighbours crack up, communities crack up, and the state government will, pull the exemption that we use and essentially take it away. So we want to do the right thing. We want to provide good quality accommodation for the tenants, for the neighbours, get those cars off the street, and try and keep everyone happy so that we can keep creating this. Because if the state government pulled that exemption, we're going to be in an even worse housing crisis than what we're currently in.
Absolutely. Do you typically get much equity uplift with a new build and commercial valuation at completion? You touched on that. Same question as before. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I understand it would only sell to an investor, hence my concern if your buyer pool is smaller, but you did make good points. Just not sure how my portfolio is ready or needing this, but keep doing what you're doing. Love it. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. Is there a council state fee per room on the Gold Coast and in Brisbane in terms of infrastructure charges?
I'll touch on that. Brisbane's good if it's done correctly. Gold Coast, we used to do a lot down the Gold Coast. I would say we did 30 or 40 projects down there probably. Yep. And the last year or so, they have been really difficult. And we've just moved out of the Gold Coast primarily because of the concern around infrastructure charges. So yeah, we haven't done anything on the Goldie for over a year now.
Why is there so few lenders?
That's a really good question, and it's this is still fairly new. This product is still fairly new. It's not mainstream at all just yet. We've got obviously a couple of lenders that have come to the party, and I think it's only a matter of time as it becomes more mainstream that a couple of other lenders actually come into this space, which will be a good thing. It'll create more competition within the lenders and start seeing, better rates and all that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, it's just not that mainstream yet. But I'd say, and I'm hoping that more lenders do come to the party very soon.
Absolutely. I think that might be grand high set to low set. You answered
probably
that.
Probably a bit less than that, but yeah, about 80.
Depreciation must be great. Yep.
Guys, so just on that, Merv, we haven't accounted for any depreciation in any of those scenarios or anything, and we don't take depreciation into account with any of when we're putting feasibilities together for clients. These have awesome depreciation, particularly the new builds. There's essentially 6 kitchens in there. There's 5 bathrooms. There's a lot of wet areas. There's 5 air conditioners. There's all sorts of stuff in there that actually really increases that amount of depreciation that you can claim. So these, at tax time, you get a very, very nice surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that brings us to the end of our questions. So thank you all so much for asking so many fantastic questions.
That was awesome, guys.
And for staying on. We've definitely run over time, so thank you for staying with us. In terms of next steps, obviously, if you have specific questions for yourself or want to talk about your own personal circumstances, there's a couple of different ways that you can chat with us. So obviously, use the link provided that we've dropped in the chat there. You can book a call with Dimitri, our property strategist. He can go through your scenario and answer some questions and then give you the steps to move forward from there for your circumstances. If you're not already, jump over to Facebook, Instagram. We do a little bit on YouTube, but not a great deal. But jump on there. Joel's always doing live walkthroughs of current projects that we're doing for clients. So if you want to get behind the scenes, it's a really good place to do that on Facebook.
Yeah, definitely on Facebook, guys. I'm on there all the time, chatting to people. People are asking questions, doing a bunch of walkthroughs. So yeah, get onto Facebook and just follow along, and you can ask so many questions on there. And yeah, it's a good spot to be.
Absolutely. And in terms of, just continuing to see inside and what we do and the kind of finishes and the outcomes, it's a great place to be. From here, we want to hear from you guys. So we hope you enjoyed tonight. But if there's anything, other topics you want us to cover, we're hoping to do more webinars and always interested to hear your feedback. So anything that we didn't touch on tonight that you'd really like to learn about, feel free to drop it in the comments or shoot me an email afterwards because, yes, we absolutely do want to do more of these.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the Facebook Lives, like if it's just something relatively small, guys, I can jump on and do a Facebook Live and cover it. We can answer questions there, and then I'm more than happy to do that as well. So if you've got anything, you do want to talk about, please let us know and we'll do it. We're going to definitely, as Bianca said, a couple more webinars throughout the year, which are good. And
Go from there. Well, thank you for staying on. Really, really appreciate having you here. As I said, book a call with Dimitri if you have more questions. Shoot us an email, and we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers, guys.